Dates get confusing around the holidays, my sister smirked after scheming me on Christmas Day. Good luck with your bill, I laughed. 3 months later, my brother texted. I'm 32, I never thought I'd be the villain in my family's story, but here I am, sipping tea in my empty house while my phone lights up with their desperate messages. I've turned the volume off. The buzzing against the wooden table is enough. They want money, they always want money. I wasn't always the family ATM. There was a time when I was just Lauren, the oldest daughter who tried too hard, the one who got good grades and stayed out of trouble, the responsible one. Little did I know that being responsible would become my prison sentence. Mom's favoritism started early. I remember being 10 years old, standing in the kitchen with a report card full of A's. I'd worked so hard that semester, staying up late to finish projects, skipping Saturday cartoons to study. I held out my report card, heart fluttering with anticipation. Mom glanced at it, nodded, and said, "That's nice, honey," before turning back to Ryan. He'd gotten a C in math, up from a D, and she was smothering him with praise. "I'm so proud of you, this deserves ice cream." I stood there, my achievement evaporating like morning dew. No ice cream for straight A's, no excited phone call to Dad, just "that's nice," and back to fawning over my brother's mediocrity. It was always like that. Amanda's participation trophy got displayed on the mantel while my first-place science fair ribbon was tucked away in a drawer. Ryan's minor improvements warranted celebration while my consistent excellence was expected, unremarkable. Sometimes I wonder if they ever loved me for me, not for what I could give them. It started small, helping Ryan with his car payment when he was between jobs, covering Amanda's textbooks when her financial aid fell through. Small acts of kindness that any big sister would do, but kindness has a way of becoming an expectation. I remember the day I realized I was being used. It was 3 years ago at Thanksgiving. My mother was setting the table, placing mismatched plates around the dining room as if they were fine china. I'd offered to help, but she shooed me away. "Go relax," she said. "You work so hard." I worked hard, 60-hour weeks at the marketing firm. I'd finally made junior partner, but the promotion came with expectations. More hours, more stress, more results. But I was proud of myself, proud of climbing out of our small-town poverty, proud of being the first Johnson to graduate college, proud of my 2-bedroom house with the blue shutters and the garden out back. I settled on the couch, listening to Ryan and Amanda argue over the remote. At 29 and 27, they still lived at home, still fought like teenagers, still expected Mom to referee their disputes. "Lauren," Ryan called, not looking away from the TV, "can I borrow $100 just until payday?" Just until payday, his favorite phrase, a temporary loan that somehow always became permanent. I opened my mouth to say no, to remind him about the $200 from last month he hadn't repaid, but Mom caught my eye from the doorway. Her look said everything. "Don't rock the boat, it's easier to just give in." So I did. I pulled out my wallet and handed him the cash. He took it without looking at me, without saying thank you, as if it was his right to my hard-earned money. That was the moment, standing there watching him pocket my cash without gratitude, feeling my mother's approving nod. I was the outsider, the resource, the reliable one who would always provide but never truly belong. After that, I started noticing patterns, how they only called when they needed something, how conversations turned to money within minutes, how my achievements were met with cool disinterest, but my financial stability was a topic of great family concern. My promotion to junior partner was a perfect example of Mom's warped priorities. When I called with the news, breathless with excitement, she listened for exactly 30 seconds before interrupting. "That's wonderful, Lauren. Listen, Amanda needs new tires for her car, about $400. I told her you'd help out." No congratulations, no proud phone calls to relatives, just another request for money and a quick pivot to Amanda's needs. The contrast was undeniable, painful. Still, I kept giving. kept hoping that generosity would buy what I really wanted, their genuine love and respect. It never did. The Christmas incident was the final straw. I'd been looking forward to the family reunion for weeks. Mom had talked about it since Thanksgiving. The whole extended family would be there, aunts, uncles, cousins I hadn't seen in years, people who knew me before I became the family bank, people who might actually be happy to see me. I bought a new dress, deep green velvet that made my eyes pop. I had my hair done. I even splurged on a holiday manicure, little gold stars on deep red polish. I picked out thoughtful gifts for everyone, not expensive but personal, things that showed I'd been paying attention. The invitation said 3 p.m. on Christmas Day at my parents' house. I'd triple-checked with Ryan just 2 days before. "Yeah, Christmas Day, Mom's going all out," he confirmed, not looking up from his phone. I arrived at 2:45, arms loaded with gifts and a homemade sweet potato casserole. My mother opened the door in her bathrobe, hair wrapped in a towel. The house was quiet. No Christmas music, no chatter of relatives, no delicious smells from the kitchen. "Lauren," Mom frowned, "what are you doing here?" My stomach dropped. "The family reunion, it's today, right?" Her face shifted, a flash of guilt quickly masked by confusion. "Oh, honey, that was yesterday, Christmas Eve." I stood there holding my casserole like an idiot as understanding dawned. This wasn't a mix-up, this was deliberate. Come in," Mom ushered me inside, avoiding my eyes. "I can make you some coffee." The living room told the story, Christmas aftermath, wrapping paper in the recycling bin, new gifts displayed on the mantle, and photos. So many photos on Mom's phone that she was too quick to put away, everyone smiling, everyone together. "Everyone except me? Honest mistake," Ryan smirked when he emerged from his room. "Dates get confusing around the holidays." Amanda at least had the decency to look uncomfortable. "We tried calling you," she lied. We both knew they hadn't. I didn't cry, I didn't scream. I sat on their couch in my beautiful green dress, balancing a mug of lukewarm coffee, and I smiled. "These things happen," I said, but inside something hardened. A resolve crystallized with perfect clarity. They had crossed a line and there was no going back. I stayed for an hour, made small talk, asked about the reunion I'd missed, nodded at their vague, evasive answers. Then I gathered my untouched gifts, left the casserole, and drove home. On the way, I called my bank. By the time I reached my driveway, all the automatic payments I'd set up for my family were canceled. Ryan's car insurance, Amanda's rent subsidy, the extra mortgage payment on my parents' house. All gone with a few taps on my phone screen. I didn't tell them right away. I waited, watched, let them dig themselves deeper. Ryan maxed out his credit cards buying Christmas presents, secure in the knowledge that his big sister would bail him out in January. Amanda signed a lease on a more expensive apartment. Mom booked a weekend trip with her church friends. All of them spent money they didn't have because they assumed I would cover the deficit, like always. 3 weeks after Christmas, they were getting nervous. I could tell from their texts, casual inquiries about when I'd be sending money, hints about upcoming bills, finally, outright requests. I invited them for Sunday dinner, made my mother's favorite pot roast, baked Amanda's preferred chocolate cake, bought the expensive beer Ryan liked. We ate, we chatted about nothing important, and just as Mom was serving coffee, I dropped my bomb. "By the way, I canceled all the automatic payments I had set up for you all." The silence was deafening. Ryan recovered first. "Very funny, Lore, I'm not joking." I took a sip of coffee. "I figured it's time you all managed your own finances." Amanda's face flushed red. "You can't do that, my rent is due next week." "Yes, rent payments usually are monthly, funny how that works." "Lauren," my mother's voice took on that placating tone she used when she wanted something. "I know you're upset about the Christmas mix-up, but this is extreme." "Is it?" I set my cup down carefully. "I think it's extreme to deliberately exclude your daughter from a family gathering. I think it's extreme to take advantage of someone's generosity for years without gratitude or reciprocation. I think it's extreme to treat family like an ATM. Ryan's face darkened. I just bought a new TV and PlayStation 5. I was counting on you covering my credit card bill. Guess that's awkward for you then. We're family, Mom tried again, her voice trembling. Family helps each other. Yes, I agreed. Family does help each other. Family includes everyone in celebrations. Family says thank you when someone is generous. Family doesn't take advantage. I stood up, smoothing my napkin on the table. I'll always be your daughter and your sister, but I'm not your bank anymore. The aftermath was exactly what I expected. First came disbelief, then anger, then desperate attempts to change my mind. Ryan called 17 times that night. His voicemails evolved from confused to furious to pleading. Amanda took a different approach, cold, clipped texts about how I was tearing the family apart. Mom cried on the phone about how she might lose the house. I blocked their numbers after 3 days, changed my email, went dark on social media. It's been 2 months now. My aunt tells me that Ryan had to sell his gaming setup to cover his credit card debt. Amanda moved to a cheaper apartment. Mom took on part-time work at the supermarket. They're surviving, adjusting, learning to live within their means for the first time in years. Sometimes I feel guilty. In my weaker moments, I wonder if I went too far. But then I remember sitting in that living room in my green velvet dress, realizing they had deliberately excluded me from a family celebration after all I'd done for them. The hardest truth I've had to face is that they never really loved me, not the way I loved them. They loved what I could give them. They loved the security of knowing Lauren would always bail them out. They loved the comfort of my sacrifice, but they didn't love me. I've started therapy, joined a book club, made friends who value my company, not my wallet. I'm learning that generosity should come from love, not obligation, that healthy relationships have boundaries, that being a good daughter and sister doesn't mean emptying my bank account. Last week I got a letter from Amanda. No demands, no guilt trips, just a simple acknowledgement that they had taken me for granted, that they were sorry, that they missed me, not my money. It's a start. I don't know if we'll ever repair what's broken between us. Trust, once shattered, is difficult to rebuild. But I do know this: whatever relationship we salvage will be healthier than what we had before, more honest, more equal. And if we can't build something new from the ashes of what we burned down, then I'll be okay on my own. I've discovered that I'm stronger than I thought, more resilient, more worthy of respect than I've given myself credit for. The price of family shouldn't be your self-worth. It took me 32 years to learn that lesson. Better late than never. My phone buzzes again. Another message. I check the screen cautiously. It's Ryan. I got a job, a real one. Would you meet me for coffee? No money talk, promise. I set the phone down without answering. I'll think about it. Take my time deciding. There's no rush. For once, the choice is entirely mine. After 3 months of silence, I agreed to meet Ryan at a coffee shop halfway between our homes, neutral territory. I arrived early, taking a corner table where I could watch the door. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. I wrapped them around my mug, letting the warmth steady me. When Ryan walked in, I almost didn't recognize him. He'd cut his hair, traded his usual graphic tees for a button-down shirt. He looked grown up, responsible. "Hey," he said, sliding into the seat across from me. We sat in awkward silence while he ordered his coffee. Black, no sugar, another change. He used to drown his coffee in cream and sweetener. "You look good," he offered. "Thanks, so do you." More silence, the weight of unsaid words pressed between us. I waited. This was his meeting, his move. "I've been working at Wilson's Manufacturing," he said eventually. "On the floor, but they have a management training program." I applied. "That's great, Ryan." "Yeah," he fidgeted with his napkin. "It's different having a real job, paying my own bills." I nodded but said nothing. "I was angry at first," he continued. "When you cut us off, I said some things, left some pretty nasty voicemails." "You did. I'm sorry. His eyes met mine for the first time, not just for the voicemails, for everything, for taking advantage, for the Christmas thing. I felt a crack in the wall I'd built around my heart. The Christmas thing, you mean deliberately excluding me from a family gathering? He winced. Yeah, it was cruel, it was Amanda's idea, but I went along with it. We were jealous of you. Jealous of what? Your life, your success. You escaped, Lauren, you got out of the trap, we didn't. I shook my head, disbelieving. I tried to help you get out too. I offered to help with your community college tuition. I tried to connect you with job opportunities. I know, but it was easier to resent you than to admit I was failing. Easier to take your money than to try and fail again. His honesty surprised me. This wasn't the Ryan I knew. My brother had always deflected, blamed others, avoided responsibility. This man across from me seemed different, humbled. What changed? I asked. Everything. He gave a short, humorless laugh. When you cut us off, it was like waking up. Mom and Amanda were blaming you, but I started seeing how messed up we'd been, how we treated you. He took a deep breath. I had to sell my stuff, move to a cheaper apartment, actually look for a real job. It sucked, but it was also freeing. For the first time, I wasn't waiting for you to solve my problems. I had to solve them myself. I felt tears prick my eyes and blinked them away. I never wanted to hurt you all, I just couldn't keep enabling behaviors that were destroying you and me. I get that now. Ryan reached across the table, hesitated, then pulled back. I don't expect you to forgive us right away, or ever maybe. I just wanted you to know that I understand what we did wrong, and I'm trying to be better. We talked for another hour about his job, my promotion, Mom's adjustment to working again, Amanda's struggles to accept the new reality. When we parted, it wasn't with hugs or promises, just a tentative truce, an acknowledgement that healing might be possible eventually. I'm proud of you, I told him as we stood on the sidewalk outside. His eyes widened, then filled with tears. Thank you. I watched him walk away, shoulders straighter than I remembered, more sure of himself, growing up finally. On the drive home, I felt lighter, as if I'd set down a burden I'd been carrying for years, not just the financial drain of supporting my family, but the emotional weight of trying to buy their love. I didn't unblock their numbers that day or the next, but I did start thinking about what rebuilding might look like, what boundaries I would need, what behaviors I couldn't tolerate. A month later, I met Amanda. Her apology was less eloquent than Ryan's, more stilted, but I sensed real regret beneath her pride. Mom took longer. 6 months passed before she requested a meeting, and even then, she struggled to admit wrongdoing. I just wanted what was best for all my children, she said, twisting her napkin in her lap. No, Mom, you wanted what was easiest. There's a difference. She flinched but didn't argue. That, more than anything, told me she was trying. I've learned that sometimes true generosity means withholding, that sometimes love requires letting people face the consequences of their actions, that sometimes the hardest path is the one that leads to healing. The price of family shouldn't be your self-worth, but the reward of family, real, honest, loving family, is worth every painful step of the journey. My phone buzzes with a text from Ryan. Lunch tomorrow, my treat this time. I smile and type back, yes, looking forward to it. Small steps, new beginnings, hope. That's the thing about family. When it's real, when it's based on mutual respect and genuine care rather than obligation or advantage, it's worth fighting for. Worth rebuilding, worth the long, difficult road to healing. Sometimes I find myself staring at old family photos, wondering how we got so lost along the way. In those faded images, my smile is genuine. Ryan's laughter isn't tinged with resentment. Amanda's eyes meet the camera without calculation. Mom's embrace feels protective, not confining. When did money become the language we spoke instead of love? When did my success become something to exploit rather than celebrate? I realize now that I played my part in our dysfunction. My generosity wasn't entirely selfless. In some twisted way, I believed I could buy their approval, their love, their respect. I needed to be needed, even if it was only for my checkbook. Ryan found his independence, Amanda her resilience, Mom her capability. None of these discoveries would have happened if I'd continued enabling their dependency. And I found something too, the courage to define my worth beyond what I could give, the strength to establish boundaries, the wisdom to distinguish between generosity and martyrdom. If I could go back and speak to my younger self, that girl standing in her mother's living room, handing over cash without acknowledgement, I'd tell her one thing: your value isn't measured by what you provide. You deserve love simply for who you are. It took a painful rupture to learn this lesson, a year of separation and slow, careful rebuilding. But the family we're creating now is stronger than what we had before, built on respect rather than obligation, on appreciation rather than expectation, on love rather than transaction. The wounds haven't fully healed, I doubt they ever will completely, but in their place something new is growing, something authentic, something worth protecting, and in the end, isn't that what family should be?
My fiancée burned our honeymoon tickets at her sister's engagement party and called me a street food loser in front of everyone. I burned our engagement photos right back. So, I'm still processing what happened last weekend. My friend Jamal convinced me to post here because he said you guys would help me figure out if I'm overreacting. But honestly, after everything that went down, I don't think I am. But well, here we go. I'm Leo, 32, work as a building permit specialist here in Denver. It's not glamorous, but I know the city systems inside and out, which has actually helped my fiancée Brooke's family more than they'd probably ever admit. Brooke comes from money. Her dad Preston owns a bunch of rental properties. Her mom Sloan runs some boutique thing, and they've always treated me like hired help who happens to be dating their daughter. For the past 2 years, I've been the guy they call when they need permits filed, business registrations handled, legal paperwork sorted. Never asked for payment because, family. Brooke would always say I was so stable and reliable, and she loved that about me, but lately she's been acting embarrassed about my job around her friends. Especially when her ex Chase started showing up at family events again. Apparently he's been advising Preston on some investment opportunities for the rental properties, so suddenly he's back in their social circle. Chase is this flashy investment broker type who loves dropping hints about amazing vacation spots and making everything sound more glamorous than it is. So here's where it gets messy. Brooke is obsessed with Korean culture, K-dramas, K-pop, the whole thing. She's always talking about Seoul being her dream destination. And I'm also really interested in Korean culture and architecture. So when we got engaged 6 months ago, I decided to surprise her with the perfect honeymoon. I spent 8 months secretly saving and planning for this trip. I'm talking Myeongdong shopping, Bukshan Hanok Village tour, Gwangjang Market food walks, Namsan Tower at sunset, Han River cruise, even a DMZ day trip. Rooftop restaurants with city views, backup plans for weather, the works. I put together this whole booklet, printed itinerary, hotel confirmations, tour reservations, maps, even restaurant recommendations from Korean food blogs she follows. Total cost was around $8.2K, which for me meant cutting back on everything for months. But I wanted it to be perfect. Fast forward to last Saturday, Brooke's sister Harper's engagement party. After the toasts, I figured it was the perfect moment to surprise Brooke with the honeymoon reveal. I stood up, tapped my glass, and announced that I had a special surprise for my fiancée. Everyone gathered around as I handed her the booklet. At first, people were making those aw sounds. Preston even said something like, "Look at that, our Leo's got surprises." Brooke opened it with this big smile, flipping through the pages with the itinerary, photos of the places we'd visit, restaurant reservations. But I watched her face change as she kept reading. The smile got tighter. She flipped faster, like she was looking for something that wasn't there. Then she looked up and said, loud enough for half the party to hear, "Seriously, street food tour and budget hotels." What are you, some kind of loser obsessed with eating bugs on the sidewalk? I was stunned. But then she kept going, her voice dripping with disdain. Chase was just telling me about Amalfi Coast. That's what real love looks like. Positano, yacht clubs, actual romance. Not this backpacker tourist trap garbage. And then, I swear I'm not making this up, she stood up, walked straight over to the decorative candle station, grabbed my booking confirmations and tickets, and lit them on fire right there on the metal tray. Literally. In front of 30 people. Maybe this will teach you about actual standards, she said. The whole party went dead silent. Chase was smirking in the corner. Her parents were nodding like she'd done something reasonable. Harper looked horrified but didn't say anything. I sat frozen for a whole minute, watching the fire eat away 8 months of effort while my fiancé smirked in satisfaction at the sight. That's when something just snapped inside me. I reached into my bag. I'd brought it for the honeymoon booklet, and pulled out our engagement party invitations and the big professional photos we'd had taken. The ones that cost $800 that I'd been planning to give to her parents. I walked over to that same candle station, looked right at her and said, "Well, then these don't have any value anymore either." And I burned them. The invitations, the photos, everything. The whole room erupted. Brooke started screaming, "What the hell is wrong with you?" Preston was yelling about me being completely unhinged, and Sloane was making these horrified gasping sounds. Harper looked like she wanted to disappear into the floor. Chase was grinning like he'd just won the lottery, but I was past the point of arguing, so I left, just walked out while everyone was staring. Jamal followed me out and apparently took photos of the whole thing, timestamps and everything, because he's that kind of photographer. He said the party basically imploded after I left, with people taking sides and arguing about who was out of line. I drove home and just sat in my apartment, which, by the way, is lease in my name only, though Brooke basically lives here, and started making phone calls. Turns out most of the Seoul trip was actually refundable or changeable. Hotels let me switch to single occupancy, tour were flexible, even got partial refunds on flights. But I also started thinking about other things, like how I'm listed as the registered agent for Brooke's consulting business, which means all her legal mail comes to my address. How I've been handling her client contracts and permit applications for free. How I've been subsidizing this relationship in ways that apparently just made her see me as convenient, not valuable. She came home Sunday morning acting like I was the one who owed her an apology. She said, "You completely humiliated me at my sister's engagement party. Do you have any idea how that looked?" How it looked. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "You literally burned my honeymoon plans in front of 30 people and called me a loser. Because they were embarrassing, Leo. Street food, budget hotels, people like us, we don't do things like that. People like us. Yes, people with standards. People who understand what it means to want beautiful things. You don't get it when my friends ask about our honeymoon, I'm supposed to say what? That we're eating mystery meat from street carts." I stared at her. "Those mystery meat street carts are part of a culture you claim to love. That's different, that's entertainment. I'm talking about real life, Leo. Real experiences that matter. So 8 months of planning something I thought you'd love, spending money I don't have, researching places you said were your dream destination, that doesn't matter. Not when it's done wrong." She was getting shrill now. "You think effort means something, but it doesn't matter if the effort is misguided. Chase understands luxury. He knows what women actually want. Then maybe you should be with Chase. Maybe I should. At least he wouldn't burn our engagement photos like some kind of psychopath. I burned them after you burned my honeymoon plans. I did exactly what you did. Oh, please. You can make new reservations. You embarrass me in ways I can't take back." That's when it clicked. I told her I understood perfectly. And that's why I was going to stop providing things she clearly didn't value. She started screaming, but I just headed to the bedroom and shut the door. So Reddit, am I crazy? Because I'm about to make some major changes and I want to know if I'm thinking clearly or just being vindictive. Edit, a lot of you are asking if there were other red flags. Yeah, there were. I think I just kept telling myself she was high maintenance instead of seeing it for what it was. For those asking, yes, Chase was absolutely involved in planning this humiliation. I found out later he'd been telling her Amalfi was what successful couples do for weeks. Update 1. Well, Reddit, you guys were right. I followed through on everything I mentioned in my last post and then some. It's been almost a month and the fallout has been intense. First, the easy stuff. I officially resigned as registered agent for Brooks' consulting business. Sent certified letters to all her clients explaining that as of date, any legal correspondence should go to whatever new address she provides. I also notified my landlord that I'm returning to single occupancy on my lease. Brooke had 30 days to find new living arrangements, which was completely legal since she was never actually a tenant, just my guest who'd been staying here long term. Colorado law is pretty clear about this when you're the sole leaseholder. She spent the first week trying to convince me I was overreacting and that we could work through this. When I didn't budge, she tried getting her parents involved. Preston called me up all friendly, like, "Hey buddy, let's not let emotions make us do something we'll regret." That's when I reminded him about the 3 business registrations I'd filed for him this year, the zoning variance applications I'd helped with, the permit expediting I'd done on his rental properties, all that work I'd been doing for family rates, ACA-free. "Of course we appreciate everything you've done," he said, "but don't you think this seems a little extreme?" That tone pissed me off more than anything else, so I told him I was just returning to normal business relationships. If he needed permit work going forward, my consulting rate was $150 an hour with a 10-hour minimum. Same for Sloan's boutique licensing issues. That didn't go over well. Preston's voice went from friendly to ice-cold real quick. "Are you serious right now? After everything we've done for you, we welcomed you into this family, Leo, and this is how you repay us. By charging normal business rates for professional services. By being vindictive and petty. You're punishing all of us because you and Brooke had a lover's spat. That's not how family works." "You're right," I said. "Family doesn't work that way. Family doesn't burn each other's gifts and call each other losers in public either. So maybe we should just stick to business relationships from now on." He hung up on me, but here's where it gets interesting. See, when you work in city planning and development, you notice things, like how Preston's been cutting corners on safety compliance for his rental portfolio. Exit routes blocked by storage, missing smoke detectors in units, fire extinguishers that haven't been inspected in years. The kind of stuff that's technically violations but usually only gets caught during formal inspections. I didn't do anything illegal or unethical. I just compiled a very thorough, anonymous report with photos, building codes cited, and property addresses. Sent it to the city's inspection department with a note about being concerned for tenant safety. Turns out, when you hand inspectors a file that's basically a step-by-step guide to violations, they tend to take it seriously. Preston's been getting inspection notices all week. Meanwhile, Chase apparently thought he could insert himself into this drama. He showed up at my office yesterday for what he called a man-to-man conversation about not taking relationship issues out on innocent people. I invited him in, offered him coffee, and had a very polite discussion about his investment business. See, when you spend 2 years at family parties listening to someone brag, you pick up details. Like how Chase loves telling people he can get them exclusive access to certain investments. How he talks about getting his clients into deals that aren't available to regular investors. How he mentions getting special commissions for bringing in high net worth clients like Preston. Chase got very quiet when I casually mentioned that it sounded like some of those arrangements might be worth double-checking with compliance, since the financial industry has pretty strict rules about disclosure and kickbacks. Nothing accusatory, just friendly advice about how easy it is to accidentally cross lines when you're eager to help clients. "Are you threatening me?" he asked. "Not at all," I said. "Just sharing some observations. I'm sure everything you're doing is completely above board, but if it isn't, well, there are anonymous tip lines for that kind of thing." He left pretty quickly after that. Harper sent me a long text about how I was destroying the family and being vindictive. I screenshotted it, just in case, but honestly her definition of family seems to be people who do things for us without expecting basic respect. The best part, Brooke's been losing clients all week. Turns out when your business address suddenly changes and your registered agent disappears, it creates confusion. Clients don't like confusion. 3 of her biggest accounts have already moved to competitors who seem more stable and professional. She's been calling this sabotage. I call it natural consequences. Oh, and remember those soul reservations. I called Jamal up and asked if he wanted to take a trip. We leave next month. Same itinerary, same restaurants, same Han River cruise. Except now it's going to be 2 guys who actually appreciate Korean culture instead of someone who thinks kimchi is too ethnic. The 30-day notice expires this Friday. I've arranged for a moving company to pack and store anything Brooke hasn't collected, all completely legal and documented. Some of you asked if I felt bad about how this played out. Honestly, I felt bad when I realized how long I'd been letting myself get treated like a service provider instead of a partner. I absolutely don't feel bad about enforcing boundaries. Edit. A few people are asking about the photos Jamal took at the party. I'm not posting them, but they've been useful for documenting the timeline of events. Amazing how much gaslighting stops when you have actual evidence. Update 2. This has been a wild month, Reddit. Time for another update because apparently my life has become a masterclass in screw around and find out. So where we left off, Brooke's 30-day notice expired, I changed the locks and her stuff was professionally packed and stored. Preston was dealing with building inspections and Chase was having career troubles. I thought that was the end of it. I was wrong. Brooke decided to sue me for wrongful eviction and intentional interference with business relationships. She claimed I'd illegally kicked her out and sabotaged her company. The freaking audacity. I actually laughed out loud for a whole minute when I received the papers. The thing is, when you work with permits and regulations all day, you learn to document everything. And I mean everything. I showed up to the preliminary hearing with what my lawyer called the most organized case file he'd ever seen. Lease agreements proving sole tenancy. Certified mail receipts for all notices. Photos timestamped from when she burned my honeymoon plans. Text messages where she admitted she'd never paid rent. But the real kicker was the evidence about her business issues. See, I'd kept copies of everything I'd done as her registered agent. Every filing, every correspondence, every client communication. When she claimed I'd sabotaged her business, I was able to show the court exactly how much work I'd been doing for free, and how her client losses came from her own failure to maintain proper business infrastructure after I resigned. The judge was not impressed with her case. Not only did she lose, but she had to pay my legal fees. Meanwhile, the fallout from Preston's inspection issues has been spectacular. Turns out when you hand city officials a roadmap to violations, they don't just check those specific things, they do comprehensive reviews. 3 of his properties are now under stop work orders pending safety upgrades. The fines alone are running about $15,000 so far. He tried calling me to work something out, offering to pay me to help navigate the compliance issues. I told him my consulting rate was now $200 an hour with a 20-hour minimum, payment in advance. He hung up. Chase's situation has been even more entertaining. Apparently that little chat we had about regulatory compliance motivated someone to file a complaint with FINRA about his business practices. He's currently on administrative leave while they investigate his commission structures and client recommendation patterns. Harper's been sending increasingly desperate texts about how I'm ruining innocent people's lives and need to call off the attacks. I've saved all of them, just in case, but I finally responded only once though. I haven't attacked anyone. I just stopped subsidizing their corner cutting. The Seoul trip was incredible, by the way. Jamal and I spent 9 days eating amazing food, exploring temples, learning about history, and generally having the time of our lives. I posted some photos on social media, not trying to make any point, just because it was an amazing trip. But apparently Brooke took it another way, because I got a message from one of her friends asking if I was trying to make her jealous. No. If she felt jealous, that's her problem. The best part happened when we got back. I'd started dating Erin, this amazing woman I met through a photography class Jamal recommended. We're taking things slow, but she's wonderful. She's a freelance animator, incredibly talented, and when I told her about the Seoul trip, she immediately wanted to hear about every detail. She was genuinely interested in the culture and experiences. We went to this new Korean barbecue place that opened downtown, and who should walk in but Brooke with some friends. She sees us, comes over to our table and starts loudly talking about how I destroyed her family and ruined her life, and generally making a scene. Oh, what did I do? I calmly opened my phone's voice recorder app. Colorado is a one-party consent state, which means I can record conversations I'm part of without anyone else's permission. When Brooke noticed what I was doing, I reminded her about slander laws and how making false public statements about someone can have legal consequences. The restaurant manager came over and asked her to leave. Her friends looked embarrassed and distanced themselves. Erin just sat there calmly eating bulgogi and asked if this kind of drama happened often. When I said no, she nodded and said, "Good, because this food is too good to waste on someone else's problems." That's when I knew I'd found someone who gets it. Final update. Hey Reddit, it's been 6 months since my last update and people keep messaging asking how everything turned out. Short version, really, really well. The legal dust has settled. Brooke's lawsuit was completely dismissed and she paid my attorney fees. Preston's properties are mostly back online after expensive compliance upgrades. Word is he's had to sell 2 buildings to cover the costs. Chase ended up taking a career break when his firm decided not to renew his position after the FINRA investigation. But honestly, I stopped paying attention to their drama months ago because my own life got much more interesting. Erin and I have been together for 5 months now, and she's incredible. She's planning to apply for a K-1 artist visa to work on some animation projects in Seoul next year, and she's been learning Korean. We spend weekends trying new Korean restaurants, and she's got me interested in her rock climbing hobby. It's amazing being with someone who sees your passions as opportunities to learn something new together. We took a long weekend trip to Vancouver last month for this Korean film festival she'd heard about. She was just as excited about the street food vendors as the actual films. Watching her try hotteok for the first time and immediately ask the vendor about the recipe, that's the kind of person I want to explore the world with. The permit consulting work has taken off beyond anything I expected. Turns out there's a real market for someone who can navigate Denver's regulatory maze efficiently and ethically. I've been able to raise my rates twice, and I'm booked solid through next spring. Started an LLC and everything. Funny story from last month. I got a call from a developer who was having issues with a mixed-use project downtown. Turns out it was a building Preston had been trying to get approved for 2 years. The new owners brought me in to clean up the permit problems and get construction moving again. It took me 3 weeks to sort out what should have been a 6-month process. Proper documentation, correct applications, realistic timelines. The kind of work I used to do for free that nobody appreciated. The project manager said it was the smoothest permit process he'd ever seen in Denver. I didn't mention my history with the previous owner. Oh, and that Korean barbecue place where Brooke made a scene. It's become Erin's and my regular spot. The owner, Mr. Kim, recognizes us now and always recommends new dishes to try. Last week he taught Erin how to properly grill galbi, and she spent the whole dinner excitedly planning a Korean cooking night at my place. That's what respect in a relationship looks like. Someone who wants to understand what matters to you instead of being embarrassed by it. I ran into Harper, Brooke's sister, remember, at a coffee shop a few weeks ago. She actually apologized for how everything went down, said she'd been thinking about it a lot. Apparently, she's been having her own issues with Preston and Sloane trying to manage her relationship, and she finally understood why I'd had enough. She asked if there was any chance of reconciliation with Brooke. I told her honestly that I hoped Brooke found someone who wanted the same thing she did, but that person wasn't me. Brooke did try to reach out a few more times after everything had settled, but I'd already blocked her everywhere at that point. She eventually took the hint and backed down. Someone asked on my last update if there was any chance she might get back with Chase. Honestly, I don't know, maybe, but I don't care enough to find out anymore. I'm not angry anymore. I'm just living a life where my time, skills, and interests are appreciated instead of tolerated. That's made all the difference. That's it from me. Thanks for following this journey, Reddit. Time to go live my life.